Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the experimental Cataclysm. If you're unfamiliar, this show is where we talk about the changes that have come to the experimental version of Cataclysm over the last 2 weeks. Now, before we get into that, which there's not very much this week, we first need to talk about an announcement. I guess would be what it is. So Korg, who is a developer on the dev team of Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, is going to be hosting an AMA on Saturday, January 9th at 8 p.m. EST. You'll have to plug that in, to find out what it is local time. But basically on Twitch, he's going to be doing an AMA. An AMA is where is an Ask Me Anything is what that is. So he's going to be streaming and he's going to be answering questions from the players of Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. I personally am going to shoot to be there, although I'm very forgetful, and especially around this time of day, I have things to do. But I'm going to try to show up, and I would encourage you to show up as well. I will be linking to this Reddit post about it in the description down below. Check that out. And yeah, show him some love. Korg is a pretty nice dude. He's done a lot of big things that have shaped the way Cataclysm works. Most recently, most notably, probably Magicalism. I know a lot of you enjoy Magicalism. But also the Pockets changes that have been coming down over the last, 6 or 8 months were not incepted by, but largely implemented by Korg initially. So yes, he's a dev team member, and I would appreciate, my viewership for these videos tends to be 200 to 300 people. If a few of you show up, that's very good. I would encourage you to do that. We very rarely see such a front-facing thing from the dev team. They very rarely, I can't think of anyone else who's made videos. I think Irk at one point maybe did some coding streams or something, but Korg has made those developer blogs, as well as he's done a coding stream or two, and he's pretty active in the Discord. So it's pretty rare that you get this kind of access to a dev team member, and I would say, if for no other reason than just to support the project and show some love, make sure you check it out. I'm going to shoot to be there. Hopefully I remember. I'm trying really hard to make a note to do this, but I may well forget. So everyone, check it out. I will post this in the link in the description down below. It'll be at the top of the description. Check out the post. Show some love. Come out for the devs. Because we're a relatively small community and we need to support each other. Now, there's not a lot of content this week. And I'm frankly a little behind, so I'm kind of just jamming this in at the end of my day to record this. We haven't had very much content, and that is mostly due to the holidays. Content has slowed down considerably. Very few things were getting merged. If you look at the last few change logs, there are only, 4 or 5 content additions that have been made over the last, every week there's 4 or 5 things. Mostly that's due to the holidays. I thought at first that they were slowing down for 0.F's release and we were moving towards content freeze. I have spoken to some people on Discord who say that's not the case. This is just due to the holidays. People are busy. People have families. Many of the dev team, have their own jobs. They have, Kevin has kids. People are busy. So, yeah, not a lot of content. And we're going to just quickly go over, frankly, only 5 things this week that even were really, really noteworthy. And most of them are not even that significant. There's just not much to talk about, but I know you get in the routine of coming here every other week, and I wanted to give you your show. So first, from Toxiclay, recognize that name from Discord. We have the addition of a grenade bandolier from Terminator 2. Here we can see a photo of that. I don't know what 1-to-1 scale means, unless that's a photoshopped image with the bandolier. It does kind of look photoshopped, doesn't it? But anyway, apparently bandolier of grenades. So presumably this functions just like any other bandolier in the game, only instead of using bullets or shot shells, probably, mostly they would be shot shells. But instead of using, whatever ammunition, they instead are going to use grenades, and specifically the 40 millimeter grenades that you would use for the grenade launcher. So, yeah, I don't really have thoughts on this. Just a new thing, just a new bandolier. Like I said, a little light on content this week. Moving on. Next, from Nihad2004, a name I also think I recognize from Discord. Hello, everyone, by the way, all the people that talk to me on Discord and are active in the community. Always nice to see people come out. We have the addition of a baseball player profession. The main purpose of this is that you would start with baseball gear, something that there's no profession that does that. I'm not a huge fan of professions. I generally don't pay much attention to them. I almost always play just backpacker, just a very basic profession. But I know a lot of people like the roleplay aspect of starting as a character that comes kind of pre-outfitted with certain gear. So we can see here this will begin with a baseball bat. Obviously seems like a perfect thing for them to have. Throwing skill, melee skill. It would be funny if they had given them... What's that book that increases your... Isn't one of the blunt weapon books named after it's like a baseball reference. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Anyway, would be funny if we saw that in here, but we don't. Start with a baseball helmet, which also is pretty good protection on like day one. So there is that. Little surprised, it otherwise just looks like basic gear, some sports drink, cell phone, and a baseball. So not like hugely game breaking or anything. It appears to cost 1 point. I don't know if that's worth it. For a point it is, in my opinion. Just to start with a baseball bat is very, very good. Throwing, though, is a pretty useless skill for the most part, and melee can be easily trained. So the main draw here is the baseball bat and the baseball helmet, I would think. Everything else, I can use baseballs as a weapon. I wouldn't think that would be particularly effective. And yeah, just simple, straightforward, has a baseball player profession. Again, I'm recording this very late in my day, so my family is very mobile in the household. Please excuse any rumblings you hear. Next, from Cass Wedson, we have the survival kit and premium survival kit being changed to item groups. So we've been noticing this more and more since we got the nested containers changes. Instead of having items that are disassembled like the old first aid kits, we're now replacing those with things that basically spawn items out of an item group. For the player, it doesn't have a huge impact. It basically just means instead of disassembling it, it spawns items pseudo-randomly depending on what their things look like. The main thing that you need to be aware of is that you can find partially consumed kits. So you're going to find these survival kits, but occasionally they will have some items missing as though someone had been using them. So instead of getting all the perfect intact items that you would get before, there is a chance that you will get a partially used one. This is why also you may have seen some partially used first aid kits over the last probably month or two since that change came down. And it just contains basic survival materials, pretty much useful at any stage of the game. But yeah, the main draw is that you will find partially depleted objects that may not contain quite as much. And instead of disassembling them as a single item, they will now be an item that contain, like a container item that contains the things that are in the kit. So there's that. Next, from Mail Clips, we got a quilt from, is that Aftershock? I don't know what AFS is. And they moved that to the vanilla game. Oh, in fact, it is Aftershock, it says right here. Basically, there was not a wool blanket in vanilla, but there was one in Aftershock. All this does is move that quilt from Aftershock and add it to the Korg game. This is nice because there are not a lot of sources of wool in the game. Finding those felt patches, things like that, can be a bit tricky, and having a big blanket that, can be taken apart for those materials is pretty good. I assume this also adds a deconstruction recipe for that, or butchery, or whatever that would be called, which I'm not actually seeing here. But presumably you would be able to take this apart. Oh, well, you can butcher it, right? You wouldn't need a recipe. You would just butcher it, and since it's made of wool, it will give you materials based on its leaders. Regardless, we now have a wool blanket, something for you to find in the game. Moving forward. And then finally from AOAE, again, someone from Discord. It adds, and is also a Redditor, a mod on Reddit, I believe, adds an injectable prophylactic antivenom. So basically you now have an item that you can inject that will temporarily make you resistant to venom. Now, I've never been poisoned in this game, or not poisoned, but whatever the venom thing causes, I've never experienced that in the game. I do believe that rattlesnakes could do this to you, like for the last several years, but since we've been getting new creatures, many new insects and things like that, I guess venom is becoming more common, and so that prompted this whole thing where you can now take this anti-venom ahead of time if you know you're going to be exposed to a venomous creature. And it's a prophylactic measure. It prevents that from taking hold of you. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I have not played with it. I don't know venom, how common that is, or really if this is a super practical thing. But I suppose if you find it, and you know you're going into a dangerous situation, why wouldn't you take it? So you now have access to Antivenom. And frankly, that is our 10-minute video. I don't have much to talk about. There were some bug fixes and other things that have been merged, some mod stuff. I saw Altica got updated a couple of times, some things with Altica. You, of course, can download Altica manually if you want the cutting-edge version of the tile set. Other than that, there really just is not that much. You know, it has been the holidays. Christmas and New Year's tends to slow pretty much every aspect of society down as people, you know, spend more time at home and off work and don't really focus on getting things done, like in the Cataclysm, you know, GitHub. It's people take time off. It is what it is. So ideally, in the next couple of weeks, we'll start seeing more content start to flow again. Presumably, there were still people who were adding things to the game. They just weren't getting merged. So we'll probably see an influx over the next couple of weeks of lots of new content to talk about. Once again, please show up and reach out for Korg's AMA. Support the dev team. You know, Korg's a pretty nice dude. You know, I mean, I don't know if we're friends, but we're friendly, and I like talking to the guy, and he seems like a nice dude who does a lot for the project. Come out, show your support, and share some love, and that is where we're going to end this episode. Hope you're all doing well. Hope everybody is safe. Still got a pandemic going on. Hope everybody's great. Hope you're doing well. Make good decisions, and I'll see you again in a couple weeks with our next episode.